What should we look for when writing a CV or reviewing a CV? What are the top tips to recruit better talent or be selected? Welcome to this 12 Scholars tutorial, and today we're going to talk about the art of how to judge a CV by its cover. What's the few things we need to think about when writing a CV and applying for jobs, but then also as an employer, what's the few things you need to be looking out for that'll help you speed up your process or flag, raise alarm bells sooner rather than later. So today we're going to share 3 top tips that'll help you on your way. And they're based not just on my experience of the hundreds of interviews that I've actually sat in, or thousands of CVs that I've sifted through, but also over the years I've got to know lots of HR professionals and senior leaders. And these are some of the themes or some of the methods that they use in order to speed up their process and recruit better talent. So first up is all about file name and format. If you were to send a CV through and the file name is document or new document or document 1, to me that's poor. Satisfactory would, at least it's got your name in there. Good, it's perhaps got your name and also a date stamp. So think about when you're naming your file, make it easy for the other person to filter it and store away safely. So for me it would be Bob Buckley CV September 2022. That would be good. I've seen it in the past where I've been sent out-of-date CVs according to the file name, or even I've been sent a CV that has got a different employer's name in there. So again, that would be poor. So file name and format. And on the format side, where possible, send it as a PDF. Because when you open files as a PDF, the formatting isn't lost. And it makes it very hard to edit. Where if you're sending in Word format, sometimes the formatting or the fonts get lost in translation. And what was 2 pages turns into 3 pages, or they're having to substitute something else. So if you want to be professional when sending your CV out there, make sure it's in a PDF format. Okay, so number 2, I'll always encourage people to write a CV as 2 pages, not 3, 4 or more, but 2 pages. You can get away with 1, and we'll come on to that later. But 2 pages is the best option, because that leaves sufficient space for all your credentials, experience, your skills, qualifications, and also room for references if appropriate. So 2 pages, it's what's expected, and that would be good as far as your employer is concerned. I talk about 3 pages or more. Well, that's one of my alarm bells that this particular candidate can't prioritise or is unable to prioritise what's important and unimportant. And certainly if it's a CV that's 4 pages or longer, then that's somebody who may waffle a lot, struggle to keep things concise or brevity. So 2 pages where possible, please. I've put in here about orphans and widows. Now, in the publishing world, an orphan is a sentence that's at the bottom of a page. It's left hanging at the bottom of a page. And a widow is a sentence or a few words that's left hanging at the top of a page. Now, if you're trying to cram things onto 2 pages, you may find that paragraphs overlap from page 1 to page 2. What I'd say is avoid, where possible, any orphans or widows. The other thing there, in terms of widows, quite often I'll receive what should be a 2-page CV, but actually it turns out to be 3 pages because it's got a widow, it's got 1 sentence on page 3. So it goes back to keeping things in terms of PDF and avoid those orphans and widows. How do you do that? Well, we talk about Goldilocks, nothing too big, nothing too small. And as far as the font size is concerned, it should be just the right size. If the font size is too big, then your CV may come across as too simplistic, too simple. If your font size is too small, then I'm having to use a magnifying glass. And again, you're not thinking about your CV from a reader's perspective. So make sure it's a good size, or the right size. Again, if you're struggling to put everything on 2 pages, you could choose to leave a lot of things out and put a link to LinkedIn. I've got a few CVs around me here, and quite often you'll see people on their CVs, they'll put like a little link in the top corner here, so they've got the address, the phone, the phone number, email address. They'll put a little LinkedIn profile there. So that's one way you can actually jettison a lot of information. And then if you're using Microsoft Word, did you know there's actually a feature on there that'll help you, reduce the text? And whether it's by percentage or by word count, you can actually reduce the overall word count by selecting this little filter on there. It's a feature I learned many years ago, and not a lot of people know about it. So there's tools there to help you, cut out a lot of kind of meaningless, or it'll help you focus on the important words. So 2 pages, please. And then thirdly, it's make it easy to read. Put yourself in the reader's perspective. Short sentences are better. You want to avoid those long words or complicated nomenclature, as one of my old professors used to say. So short sentences. Think about the proportion of text. So sometimes I'll see people who've been in a job maybe 5 years or longer, and they'll only give a sentence or two to that particular job. And then they'll talk about one of their earlier jobs that they probably enjoyed more, but they'll give more kind of page space to that. So think about who you're applying for, or think about what the job, if you're reading a CV, you're reviewing a CV, think about what the job entails. And has the candidate given proportionate, page space to their experience and skills? Let's talk about consistency. So I'm scanning through CVs. If I see lots of, inconsistencies in terms of, caps locks on, caps lock off, different font sizes, if there's, inconsistencies in, sentence case versus lowercase, alarm bells. A good CV, it'll be nice and consistent, you're making it easy. You want to limit the colour. If you want to use colour, I would suggest using one colour only as a highlight colour. And that's either for headings, subheadings, or if you are to use lines, then you could use it there. But limit colour. And then finally, proofread. Proofread. If you're sending a CV out to somebody, make sure not only you've read it, but make sure somebody else has read it before you send it to. So many times I've seen errors, and it could be abbreviations that are back to front. It could be you've duplicated words or misspelt things. So it's get the basics right. Proofread, and proofread. So they're just a few things to think about when judging a CV by its cover. But what about some examples? Well, I've got with me here a dozen examples. I thought I'll share a few with you. So on this one here, we've got a one-page CV that looks a bit too simplistic. The text size is too big, there's not much detail, and that would be an alarm bell that this particular candidate isn't selling themselves. So for me, that's poor. We've got another one-page CV where the candidate has actually tried to cram too much on. And yes, they've probably got everything in there, but it doesn't leave sufficient white space around the borders. Now, I'm one who's quite anal when it comes to white space, because when I've printed out a CV, I like to add notes to it. So this particular one hasn't got enough white space for me. We've got an example here where they've used a bit of colour, boxes, probably a standard format on Word. It's kind of intrigued me, it's a bit different, and it's kind of got me reading. It's making it inviting, it's easy to read. But in terms of what does good look like, well, I've got one here which is 2 pages, there's sufficient white space, there's some nice headings, subheadings, and it just looks inviting to read. And for me, this is, without even reading it, this is one that would go onto my good pile, and it was delivered as a PDF. So here's one that it looks well, and it's done over 2 pages, and it's not it's not overly detailed, but it's not simplistic either. It's kind of got that Goldilocks approach. So hopefully there's a few things there for you that if you're applying for jobs to think about, but then also if you're recruiting and you're wanting to recruit better talent, this will help you speed up your process for processing CVs. So to summarise then, In order to judge a CV by its cover, we've got 3 things to think about: the file name and format, looking at 2 pages, and please make it easy to read. So thanks so much for watching. This has been a 12 Scholars tutorial. My name's Bob Buckley, and I look forward to seeing you next time.